what's this? Oh. What, you want me to press the button? Why are you running? I don't got time for this, because the fantasy news has gotta flow. You thought I was gonna explode, but it didn't. Welcome everybody to another episode of Fantasy News. I'm your disheveled goblin host, Daniel Green, and today we're gonna be kicking off Fantasy News with a very brief channel update, and that's that affiliate links beneath book reviews are no longer gonna be directing you to Amazon, but instead bookshop.org. I've wanted to look for another place to send people to buy books aside from Amazon for quite some time, and Kayla, with her amazing research, has finally found me a great place to do so. I totally understand that that's going to make some people just go to Amazon on their own because they like the convenience of going where they do a lot of their shopping. No judgment from me whatsoever. It's just for my own personal channel. I'd like to direct people to a place that supports local bookshops. So if you haven't checked them out before, I recommend you do. Simple as that. Not even a sponsor, just an affiliate program. On to the news. And we're going to go ahead and kick off the news today with a cover reveal from Corey Brickley, who is actually the artist who got to put it on their Twitter, and it is for Immortal Longing by Chloe Gong. This, I like this art a lot. The lighting on it is spectacular. And don't get me wrong, I really appreciate the entire artistry of a book's layout, how people have to work with the cover art to just like finally present it. But there are certain types of art that I'm just like, could I buy that raw? Like, it's such raw and wiggly with no title. No, because part of the marketing is the publisher mark, which we recently did a tier list about, and having the title worked in often in ways that does elevate the art to the book. But like, I would just buy a poster of this. I think it looks really great. Good job. But going from one cover reveal to another, we're actually gonna be talking about a book that we've already reviewed here on the channel, and that's because Tress of the Emerald Sea has had her mass tour cover released, and it looks like this. There's been a bit of a debate among the Sanderson fans of the different covers for Tress of the Emerald Sea that have floated about since the secret projects were first announced, which is the best. I think obviously it's art, it's subjective, there is no best. I quite like almost all the ones I'm showing on screen now, but if I had to pick a personal favorite, I would go with this one, but if you ask me another day, it might change. What I'm more hoping for to see with this series as it's released through Tor and its like secret project release is that they do keep the style consistent and make it so that people who have like a Sanderson shelf can have a section for the secret projects that will align very beautifully. Whether it is the secret projects or the Tor release, that's just important for both crowds. That probably sounded pretty obnoxious, being like, I don't think there's a best for art. It's all right, that was dumb. I know people who are saying that are just having a lighthearted debate. I did get through this whole take of talking about Tress of the Emerald Sea without calling her Tresse once, because that is still just in my head. God damn it. And now it is time for me to give a little bit of a response to something. Personally, I am someone who doesn't really watch book talk content. There are book talk creators I talk to, but I have straight up told them, TikTok just kind of gives me anxiety. I don't even have it on my phone anymore. It's not a social media app that hooked me. But I respect their content, and I think what they're doing is great. This GQ article disagrees with me. Titled "In the Shallow World of Book Talk, Being a Reader is More Important Than Actually Reading," with the subtitle, "The TikTok books community is more about a lifestyle aesthetic than actually reading. As a former booktuber, I can't help but feel partially responsible." The article then goes on to say things like, "Way back in the 2010s, there used to be a community of book lovers on YouTube. The collective known as BookTube was very much a precursor to today's Book Talk. Some of the pillars of Book Talk were pioneered on BookTube, and for a while at least, it was a cozy and wholesome corner of the internet. I used to be a booktuber, one of the bigger ones actually. It's kind of the reason why I was able to have some legitimacy when I transitioned into writing about books as a career. I stopped making booktube videos because the community had become overrun by commercialism. Near the end of the 2010s, many of the major booktubers had essentially become pawns of the heads of the publishing houses. They received boxes upon boxes of books that they'd then haul, and then you'd never see those books mentioned again. The act of reading became became replaced by the act of being a reader. Actual reviews became few and far between, and many of the smaller, genuine readers in the platform jumped ship. It feels like Book Talk has gone to the same place, only much faster. This author then goes on to talk about how there's a cult of book ownership and that TikTok is just making book ownership purely an aesthetic. Authors hate it. These people are just being sent books and unhauling them and they don't actually read. And of course, the Book Talk recommended section of a bookstore is all just the easily bingeable things of literature that are not worth our Shut the fuck up. Especially the little comment about how romanticizing reading and like putting on a little outfit, that's been going on for literally centuries. Reading and literature has always been tied to a false, a sophisticated aesthetic. There are genuine readers, there are fake readers out there. Book Talk is fine. I get it's easy to crap on Book Talk because it's the younger people app, but I know these people personally. Many of them are reading vast amounts, and the content they're putting out reflects what works on a platform. There are absolutely people out there who lie about books they read. There always has been. There has also always been books that are just super bingeable. That's why there used to be pulp sections and entire pulpy genres that people could just easily binge. And yeah, there's also been people who like going on hikes to read, wearing certain outfits, having their cozy little nooks. This looking down on Book Talk is just super obnoxious. I don't care if people are reading pulp. I just want people to fucking read. It's also okay to have phases in your life where you read less. You can look at my channel here and see that 2022, yeah, I was burnt out on reading and my channel adjusted to adapt. Does that mean I'm suddenly only into books for the aesthetic? No, it's a hobby and you ebb and flow with it. All Book Talk is doing is representing a part of literature that is just as long and historied as nearly any other genre, which is easily bingeable literature and not. There's also plenty of Book Talk content about some of the heftiest books out there. Now, if the algorithm realized you were responding to extremely pulpy material, I don't really know what that says. And on top of that, this whole, oh, BookTube is terrible now. BookTube is more full than ever. Die-hard readers who are going through incredible amounts of content and putting out very genuine, earnest book reviews. I'm fully willing to admit my content is certainly skewing more towards just sci-fi and fantasy as a whole. I am not as book-oriented. But that's just because it's reflecting me as a person, as a lot of these content creators are having their content reflect them and their interests as people. And here's my final takeaway. If people are picking up books purely because it's an aesthetic, I think that means they're more likely to actually start reading them. And I don't care. That's fine. They're giving authors money, and this person has something that makes them feel better about themselves. Trust me, as a chess player who is constantly seeing people like pose with boards that are set up in ways that are just impossible, I don't care. It's fine. They're having fun. They think it makes them look a little certain way. You kind of get to laugh at them a little bit, but it's all right. No one's getting harmed. And this tone in this article is the most condescending trash. Maybe most frustrating of all is this article has the potential to touch on stuff that I think in the book space absolutely deserves criticizing. There is certain toxic elements when it comes to authors like sending audiences at people, or the rise of, yes, hyper-consumerism within this space where there's special editions that people need to spend just more and more and more on, and I hate that. It's why in my special edition reviews, I tend to remind people you are getting nothing out of a special edition that you do not get with a mass paperback in terms of the story, paperback, whatever. Anyway, that's not what the article focuses on then, and instead, we're just criticizing a guy for having a lot of books he still hasn't read. Maybe he had a rough year. Maybe he wants to get to those eventually. Why do you care? They're not redundant books. It's not stuff he needs to donate, and yeah, I donate a ton of books to local bookshops and help them out. That's good. And then there's this weird passive thing about how like, oh, how can this person make a tiny duplicate of every book they read this year and have the time to do that? Maybe they didn't read. Maybe you should mind your own goddamn business. You know what time this person has? It's called a fucking hobby. Yes, these people might be trying to lean in an aesthetic for views, but you talked down to all of them for clicks on GQ. I was a part of when BookTube started to blow up. I remember when I had so many people saying like, a video about a book, how stupid are you? I have gotten, and I am not saying this to stroke my own ego, thousands of people to pick up various books. And that is one of the most proud things in my life. And any TikToker out there who's doing it, I may not like your content, but you're doing a good thing. Oh, people are having fun with books and getting more people to read their favorite books. better shit on them. So I'll just reiterate something I've learned after spending years talking about literature as a whole. I don't care if you read graphic novels, manga, hardcore literature, or just pulp. As long as you are reading, sharing stories you love with people around you, and having a good time, life is short, good on you. And in the next story we're going to be covering here that I'm sure will be just as not controversial as the last one, 11 Labs has put out a sample of their AI voice narrating The Great Gatsby. And I'm more or less just using this as an excuse to talk about this topic that I've been actively researching for multiple reasons over the last couple weeks to give a full, better, well-rounded thought. And unfortunately, I am of two minds in a way, right? I'm a former tech nerd, so obviously there is a part of me that just thinks this is really cool in a lot of ways for technology I've been watching develop since I first got into the industry. But, of course, as someone who is friends with narrators and is dating a narrator, it's scary because this is rapidly, faster than I even thought when I heard my first audiobook narrated in 2022, to just sounding like a human. Granted, 11 Labs here still definitely has some issues. There are pauses and certain emotional lackluster moments where clearly the AI is just reading through it. The best way I can put it is it doesn't still feel like a performance, it just feels like a reading. They're even addressing this in their own replies on the Twitter. But this is all stuff that I can see rapidly evolving and getting better with just a few more months of AI practicing and reading audiobooks. And after a lot of research on how tech has come into spaces, basically for me, the big turning point and when you're going to see a whole lot more of these entering the market is when on the engineering angle, it becomes so much easier to punch up the AI narration to sound damn near flawless. Once that flip has happened and the cost of production is just undeniably easier over here, I think we're going to see this a lot more aggressively pushed in the market. I don't necessarily like it. I do think it's cool, but at the same time, yeah, it just seems like a threat to a lot of people I care about's jobs. I don't think it's possible to ever stifle innovation in this way or just completely disallow AI from reading audiobooks, and there are also angles to this that can be good. For people with disabilities who cannot read, technology like this allows every single book to just have a narration that they can experience, and so no book is now off limits to someone who is blind, or with just like me, a severe reading disability. I used to read along with audiobooks because of my dyslexia, and that actually helped me become a better reader. It makes me nervous, it makes me curious, and I'll keep an eye on it. And of course, we need to talk about my prediction on The Last of Us Episode 3. Episode 3 was exactly right. The viewership did tick up yet again a fairly substantial amount with a whopping 12%. Not as big as the 22, but still incredible for an episode 3. And as the episode overall, don't open your heart, but don't. Oh, it's so good. Nick Offerman is a god. And if you haven't watched White Lotus and you want more of Frank, watch season 1. He's the funniest part of it by a mile. And if you want a longer review from me, I will be doing that once the season is over, just because the analytics on the first episode weren't great. And I also want to be able to give a full thoughts on a season review without having to worry about, okay, am I sounding redundant to like what I said about episode 4? And yes, in the final piece of news we'll be covering this week, One Piece has had its first promotional posters, and I thought they were fine. Not anything spectacular, but as these are not like official shots or even a teaser, it just isn't something I'd put on my wall, and I'm still like, neat. But if you're curious to see what they look like, they're on the screen now, and I do love the memes about Chad Sanji and his big chin, because there's just like a weird angle to this poster where it looks like Sanji has the most like awesome chin ever. But this has just been your latest episode of Fantasy News. Like and subscribe if you have not already, and check out my books if you want to support my authorial career. Hit the Patreon if you want to support what I do here. And have a good one, y'all. What's that beeping?